Great. Well, thank you very much, Miles. Thank you to everybody for turning up. My name is Shamir. I run the Centre for Sustainable Products at BRE. And I guess I want to set a bit of a narrative in for these next few minutes that I'm talking, and really start with a series of thanks and end with some thanks, perhaps. So I'm deeply humbled and grateful to pretty much everybody in this room, really, because as our work has developed at BRE literally over these last 11 months, I think pretty much everybody in this room and others who perhaps couldn't be here today have actively contributed and shared and helped to develop our standard, and that has enhanced its richness, and I think we're going to end up with something that is helpful, credible, and something of real value. So that is a genuine thank you, and I think we have certainly at BRE recognised that we have stood on the shoulders of giants in this space who've been doing this for so many years before we started to look at this as an issue, building on some of the legacy work that we've done in responsible sourcing. So I know some of you have given us the straw feed of an idea, and that's been developed and shaped over the last few months into something that we think will be really helpful. And I myself, I started out work in the construction industry. That's all I've ever known, really, for the last 13, 14 years. Started out in the production environment in an asphalt plant just across the river down in Greenwich. And as I've been going through this, often I've reflected on the people I've worked with and who I worked with in the past. And I still keep my orange overalls with my name on to remind myself of where I kind of started out in life, and driving around in big yellow machines and unloading trains with a Bulgarian guy. And then some of the chaps who worked on our site, one of them was Lithuanian, and the chap was Polish. And you start to think about, well, actually, we worked with lots of these people over many years. And then you think, well, yeah, what if we had agency workers? And then so many times now I reflect and think, well, how did we really recruit those people? Even in a very localized agenda, Kevin was talking about what's happening down the road. And so many of these things can start to come through when you start to reflect on what your own experiences are in the industry gleaned over many years. And I think Cindy made the reference to George Orwell with Big Brother, and I'll probably try to throw something else into that space, is that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Quote from Animal Farm. And so often we start to question the real humanity of what we are doing, and a few that Chris and others have mentioned about our moral compass and the ethical nature of the very conversations that we're having and why and how we're trying to do it. So much of that has really come through. I was in Dubai to share with you a bit of a personal experience, Dubai a couple of weeks ago for business. And you really start to see, as much as the conversations about the kafala system and everything else that's there, and I know many of you guys are actively working out there, Neil and others. And I grew up I was born in Nuneaton, and then I grew up most of my life in Kettering near the Weetabix factory. And then, I only ever known to be English. My children only ever know themselves to be English, but yet to go into a space and no one said anything to me, but to I can't even explain what it feels like to know that someone's looking at you because you just look like you're slightly different, and perhaps you should be doing the cleaning. Perhaps you should be, working behind the counter in the takeaway, or just doing something else and not actually talking about something in a professional capacity. It was really weird, and it's almost like kind of the elephant in the room in some of these contexts, isn't it? That you're like, I'm me, but you don't know me. Lots of people like you know me. But over there, it didn't matter, and there's so much of this as we've gone through our journey that we can try and influence and change. But as others have said already, it's about that collective and the collaborative way of how can we galvanize. And I think Richard's point there about the Modern Slavery Act acting as a catalyst for our industry is very salient. So that's perhaps a bit of a reflection on what I've kind of felt, certainly more recently. And I've been out to the Middle East in the past where I wasn't as conscious of what was going on around me, and you're kind of blinded to it, aren't you? Because you're not in there. But when you start to unravel these issues and peel back the layers, and you think, yeah, this is really weird, and you just can't sort of start to fathom it. So hopefully what we try and do will start to address some of these things. And it's not really with the stroke of the pen. Others have already said about the statements and the focus on statements, and it's great that others are looking at the statements and realizing what they are telling us, what we're sharing, what we're learning from them. But I think sometimes the statement aspect can be a bit of a red herring, because there's so much focus on the paper, and as you already alluded to, less on the doing and the how. So what we're trying to do is do more than just look at a statement, and how do we promote it, the practices within an organization and its supply chain, and the embeddedness of the issues to demonstrate continuous improvement, to look at the context of what the organization is looking at and how it's looking at it over a period of time. And I think that's really important. So in terms of our standard, we had some ideas from a number of you in the room towards the very end of last year. And luckily, I'm just very fortunate that I was given the task of trying to consolidate this into a piece of work and something that will have value. Lots of the standards that live within BRE, people know us as BREEAM and building level assessment and these types of things. It's very prescriptive in a sense, and lots of it lives on a rating system. So you've got a BREEAM building, that's a pass, good, very good, and excellent. And the whole idea to have a Modern Slavery Act type of standard around ethical labour processes, to say I'm, Modern Slavery Act very good, or I'm very good at modern slavery, I'm excellent at modern slavery, it just all sounded a bit wrong. So we decided that was a bad idea. And so when we ended up having, through our consultations, talking to many of you in the room, we started off with 15. At the last count, we just got past 150, just as a stakeholder group, just through organic word of mouth, people thinking that's quite helpful, that's something we need to understand. So we did some pilots, and our standard covers 12 issues, and it's got a maturity model built into it. So there's no yes and no, there's a, well, you're trying really hard in that, aren't you? And you're improving in that, you recognize this as an issue. Actually, it's something that maybe you want to consider as an opportunity to develop and grow. So that is inherently how our standard is working. Now we've got a draft, it's going through our governance process at the moment. It will work in the sense that you achieve verification. So whilst as a structure, it will be publicly available, so lots of companies can go off and just use it, and if they want to get verified to it, they can come back to us. And it's about setting objectives to look at how you can demonstrate your commitment to continuous improvement. And we set some objectives through the conversation. We are actively avoiding the word audit, because I think that in some cases there's audit fatigue out there in industry. And I'm trying to break the cycle, because with an audit, I looked after management systems in a previous life, and you do go through the audit, there's the site visit and all the rest of it, and I've got some non-conformities, right? You bury that, or try and reduce the level of the risk of it, and then you might look at it 11 months later and go, oh, good grief, what did we say we were going to do? And you run around, try and sort it out. We're trying to break all that kind of psyche and essentially develop a subscription model to try and support it. I'm kind of running out of time, but I try to describe it to everybody that talks to me about the ethical labour sourcing standard, that it's about, imagine a 12-sided Rubik's Cube, okay? And they're all your multifaceted issues and dimensions of how it kind of works. And we're not trying to orient the cube and solve it, because as many as others have said, we can't solve it. We're not trying to prove the absolute negative or the absence of modern slavery in every single context, because as you start to look at all the big risk areas in your supply chain, in your organization itself, how embedded is it in your business will evolve and change shape over time. The cube will always be orienting itself over time. So what we want really, and I think people have said it before, and this is what I want to finish on, this is about courage. There's aspects of leadership, and we've got some fantastic leading organizations in our industry. A few of these have already been name dropped. But for me, it's about the courage, the commitment for organizations to take on our ethical labor sourcing standard, to really show that they're starting this journey and they've got a commitment to demonstrate continuous improvement. So I think we can go to, as this grows, we can go to other parts of the world over time and have to just be more conscious of the humanity that we are considering, to see humans as equals, really as equals. And I know that's very challenging, because we've all got our own personal biases, and I'm not perfect by any means at all, and see the humanity in each other. So the future in 2061 need not be so Orwellian. I think we've got masses of opportunity to really take the challenge head on, as Kevin Highland already said at the beginning of the day. This is not trying to say I'm this or I'm that. It's actually, we really are going to try and do something positive and make that contribution. So that's really it from me. So the only thing I really want to say and end on is that when you say thanks and I finish and you applaud, do not thank me. This is not about what I've done. Oh, God. This is about This is about organisations like Marshalls and Wilmot-Dixon who genuinely contributed to that agenda and have actually committed quite recently to me that I've asked for their permission at this event to publicly say, Marshalls, Wilmot-Dixon, thank you. You have shown the courage and leadership on adopting the ethical labour sourcing standards. Thank you.